Hi friends! In today's video, we'll dive into the world of blue shades. If you explore the palette of any reputable brand, you'll find dozens of blues and their variations. But don't worry, we won't go through all of them. It's not necessary. Instead, I like to approach this topic structurally, focusing on three key characteristics of each colour. Warm or cool? Undertones. Is the colour closer to green or violet on the colour wheel? Pigment saturation and intensity. How vibrant is the pigment, and how does it behave in mixtures? Value range, light to dark. How much tonal variety can the colour provide, from its lightest to darkest shades? Most of the colours we'll explore today are single pigment colours, with just 3 exceptions included for comparison. Let's get started. One of the most popular blue shades, and the one I use the most, is ultramarine blue. This colour has a rich, cool tone leaning slightly toward violet. It comes in various forms: light ultramarine, dark ultramarine, and even violet ultramarine. Today I'm working with a standard medium ultramarine. It's vibrant and saturated, but in mixtures it doesn't always retain its brightness, a point I'll discuss later. The next colour is Prussian blue, also known as Berlin blue. This shade is darker and more transparent than ultramarine, with a slightly muted, almost blackish undertone. Unlike colours like indigo, Prussian blue is a single pigment colour, free from added black pigments, giving it a purer character. Now, let's look at 2 colours that may appear similar when wet: Phthalo blue and Cobalt Cerulean. Phthalo blue is a highly transparent, intense blue with incredible mixing potential. Cobalt Cerulean, on the other hand, has a denser, granulating pigment. It's lighter than ultramarine and won't achieve a deep, dark tone, even in its most saturated form. Another colour worth mentioning is a greenish-blue variant I often use, turquoise green, or blue-green. This shade leans toward emerald, but behaves like a blue in mixtures. While I don't have the classic emerald green commonly found in starter sets, this Turkish blue-green is softer and more muted, making it a versatile addition to my palette. Finally, I've included 3 additional colours with granulation from the Nevskaya palette brand. These shades are mixtures containing ultramarine and other pigments. As we look at these colours, they may seem similar at first glance. However, the real magic happens when you start mixing them with other pigments. Each brand's formula can behave differently, even for the same named colour. For example, ultramarine blue from a popular Russian brand mixed with their cadmium orange creates a brownish-violet tone. However, when I use cadmium orange from another brand, the mixture leans slightly greenish. This highlights the importance of testing and understanding how your specific pigments interact to achieve the best results. The general characteristics of ultramarine in mixtures. First, ultramarine is a relatively dark colour. Secondly, it's granulating, something you may have noticed if you've worked with it before. If not, let me explain. Granulation is the effect where, as the paint dries, tiny pigment particles settle into the texture of the paper. This can either surprise or inspire artists, depending on how they approach it. The granulation effect also impacts the tonal range. During drying, ultramarine tends to shift. Its granules highlight the blue tones more prominently. For example, while wet, the paint may appear like a smooth bluish-violet wash. However, as it dries, granulation separates the pigment into noticeable textures, making the blue more visible. This is especially pronounced in larger washes, such as skies or backgrounds, where the granulation effect becomes a defining feature. In one of my examples, you can see how granulation transformed the background of a piece painted wet on wet. The texture became more pronounced than anticipated, affecting the overall tone. Green shades, mixed with ultramarine. Mixing ultramarine with yellow produces greens that tend to be slightly muted or dusty. Additionally, the granulation effect can carry over into these mixtures, adding texture to what might otherwise be smooth transitions. In contrast, an alternative like Prussian blue, Berlin blue, offers a darker, more transparent pigment with key differences. While Prussian blue is also strong and dark, its mixtures lean toward cleaner, brighter results. For example, greens mixed with Prussian blue are sharper and more vibrant, often resembling emerald tones. In purples, Prussian blue creates vivid, clean results, though it fades slightly as it dries. Another unique feature is its ability to create near-black tones when combined with reddish-brown pigments, such as burnt sienna or English red. This is a useful substitute for black in your palette. However, choosing the right brown is critical. Avoid yellow-leaning browns, as they may produce unwanted green undertones. Comparing pigment behaviours. Prussian blue behaves more like Phthalo blue, as it's less granulating and offers a smoother texture in mixtures. Its stretchability, or how far it can spread in a wash, is a key trait. This can be both an advantage and a challenge. While it provides flexibility in large washes, it may overpower less active pigments in mixtures, pushing its way to the forefront. For example, when mixed with a red, Prussian blue creates a deep, rich purple, perfect as a replacement for pre-mixed violets. When mixed with a strong brown, it can mimic black tones while retaining depth and richness. Understanding these nuances in pigment behaviour is essential for making informed choices in your palette. If you're working with a standard starter set, you can achieve a wide range of effects by experimenting with ultramarine and Prussian blue in different mixtures. Each pigment has its strengths, and knowing when to use one over the other will elevate your work. And now let's talk about cerulean blue. This colour is stunning in its pure form, a soft, noble blue, but it comes with unique characteristics. Cerulean doesn't blend as easily with other pigments compared to colours like Berlin blue or Phthalo blue. Some might call it difficult, but this slower blending can actually work to your advantage. Cerulean tends to maintain its distinct blue hue in mixtures, which can add subtle variations and artistic charm to your work. Like ultramarine, cerulean is a granulating pigment, but it's also somewhat abrasive. This means that when applied, it can partially lift or disturb previous layers of paint, leaving delicate blue marks or textures. This characteristic can enhance the painterly quality of your work, creating interesting textures and subtle highlights. In mixtures, cerulean often produces muted, greyish tones. These can be incredibly effective for creating an atmospheric or sophisticated look, especially in works where subdued colours are key. For example, greens mixed with cerulean can appear soft and soapy, perfect for muted, earthy landscapes. Combining cerulean with a crimson pigment can create a beautiful lavender shade, without the chalky appearance of pre-mixed lavenders that contain white. As the paint dries, the differences between cerulean and phthalo blue become more evident. While both may look similar when wet, phthalo blue has a warmer undertone and higher pigment intensity. Cerulean, by contrast, appears softer and more subdued, often fading slightly as it dries. This contrast is especially noticeable in gradients or transitions, such as in depictions of feathers or tropical water. For instance, phthalo blue to ultramarine. This creates a stunning gradient, transitioning from warm to cool tones. Phthalo blue's warmth makes it versatile in mixtures, creating vibrant purples and intense greens. Even with yellowish tones, it maintains a strong, clean result. However, it's less effective for deep, dark mixes compared to Berlin blue or Prussian blue, as its pigment is lighter. Cerulean, on the other hand, is perfect for tropical or marine-themed illustrations, where its subtle, airy quality can mimic light reflections on water. While it's not ideal for achieving dark tones, it works wonderfully for middle values and soft transitions. As we watch these colours dry, you'll notice the unique qualities of each. Berlin blue, Prussian blue, leans slightly black as it dries, perfect for creating near-black tones in mixtures. Phthalo blue maintains its bright azure hue, ideal for bold, clean illustrations. Cerulean retains its muted, granulated texture, adding sophistication and atmosphere. Each of these pigments has its strengths. Whether you need vibrant tropics or atmospheric skies, understanding these differences helps you use the right blue for the job. In the next section, we'll explore how these pigments interact in more complex mixtures and compositions. Don't forget to leave a comment about your favourite blue shade and where you love to use it. These turquoise shades are also worth exploring, especially for their mixing properties, pigment intensity and darkness. Often turquoise or even green-leaning shades, like my Turkish green blue, can behave like blues in mixtures. For instance, when combined with pinks such as carmine or permanent red, they produce fascinating violet hues. These violets are often deep, noble, and elegant, making them a great addition to your palette. It's important to note that while colour names may sound similar across brands, the pigments themselves can vary slightly, resulting in different effects. Always check the pigment information on the label, which usually includes a combination of letters and numbers. For blue shades, the pigment codes typically start with PB, e.g. PB29 for ultramarine. Green-leaning pigments like emerald green may be labelled as PG, e.g. PG7. For example, ultramarine blue is almost always PB29. If you see additional pigments listed, the paint may behave differently. Prussian blue, Berlin blue, is usually PB27. Check if your paint contains added black, as this can alter its transparency and behaviour in mixtures. Another example is cerulean blue, which is one of the most expensive paints due to its natural granulating qualities. Some brands offer genuine cerulean, while others provide imitations or variations labelled as Cobalt cerulean or simply Cerulean. Genuine cerulean granulates beautifully, which is one of its defining characteristics. Phthalo blue and its variants. Phthalo blue, often labelled as PB15, can also have additional modifiers, such as PB15.3 or PB15.6, indicating slight variations. These tend to behave similarly, offering vibrant, clean tones. I have a tube of Phthalo blue labelled PB15 that's been in my collection for years, a gift from a friend who brought it from abroad, and it's still going strong. Another green-leaning shade in my palette is labelled PG26, Turkish green. Turkish green and similar turquoise shades can vary significantly depending on their pigment makeup, so always check the label to understand their properties better. I have a practical exercise to help you apply all the information we've covered. Try creating a mixing chart with your blues, turquoise and complementary colours. This will help you understand their behaviour and expand your palette's versatility. Thank you for watching my tutorials. Don't forget to like, subscribe and comment on this video. It helps the channel grow and motivates me to create even more valuable content for you. If you'd like to support the channel financially, you can find links in the description. Additionally, you can subscribe to my exclusive lessons on Patreon, where I share more in-depth tutorials not available on YouTube. Join my group or individual classes to receive personalised feedback and tailored recommendations to improve your skills. Check out my Telegram and Instagram for even more tips and inspiration. Thank you again, and let's continue with the video. Here's the swatch I created while filming, featuring all the mixtures and pigments we've discussed so far. Making swatches is an excellent way to understand your colours and their behaviour, but it's equally important to know how to use them in your future projects. That's why I recommend keeping track of your mixtures while creating swatches. As you work on swatches, take notes about which colours you mix. If it's challenging to remember, label or mark your mixtures directly. After they've dried, this step is crucial for two reasons. 1. To avoid smudging the colours. 2. To clearly see the magical effects that emerge after drying. Once dry, cut out your swatches. At this point, focus entirely on what your eyes perceive. Turn off your logical brain and rely on your visual impressions. Look closely at what you've created and sort the mixtures into 3 groups. 1. Purple and violet tones. These may range from lavender to deeper, darker purples. Most of these will likely involve combinations of blue and red pigments, such as cerulean or ultramarine mixed with carmine. 2. Green tones. A range from light, yellowish greens to darker emerald hues. 3. Neutral tones. Include greys, browns and blacks. Sorting these by tone, from light to dark, can be trickier, as neutral colours often lean toward greenish or reddish undertones. Cutting the swatches into simple shapes, such as circles or squares, can make it easier to manipulate and arrange them. Label the back of each swatch with the colours used, such as cerulean plus carmine or ultramarine plus carmine. This will help you identify and recreate your mixtures later. Organise each group by tone, from light to dark, to create a visual gradient. This creates a sort of pyramid for each colour group. Light to dark purples on one side, light to dark greens on another. Neutrals, from soft greys to near blacks in the 3rd group. Once organised, these swatches can become a practical reference tool. Display them near your workspace, so you can quickly consult them when planning your next project. Compare the swatches to decide which shades of blue or other tones you'll use, and for what purpose. Thank you for watching. That's all for this video. I hope you found these tips helpful. Don't forget to like this video and share your thoughts in the comments. Your feedback helps grow the channel and inspires me to create more valuable content. If you'd like to see more, subscribe for future tutorials. See you in the next video. Happy painting!